beautiful people. This is Leanne, and welcome to Note to Life podcast. And tonight we're going to be talking about relationships, one of my favorite topics in the whole entire world, relationships. And we're going to be talking about building and maintaining a beautiful, loving, respectful relationship using the 6 C's. Now, before we get into the 6 C's, you gotta have all of these 6 C's in your relationship. You can't pick and choose which 6 C's you want in the relationship. You gotta have all of them. It's not no 4 out of 6, 5 out of 6. It has to be 6 out of 6. Okay? So let's get into it. Commitment, consideration, compassion, communication, consistency, and compromise. Those are the 6 C's. These are very vital in having a very loving and long lasting relationships with anybody. Okay, with anybody. All right, so let's break it down one by one. Commitment. Commitment involves focus, love, trust, honesty, and just being faithful with that person. Okay, you gotta put your all. You gotta be there for that person from the beginning to the middle to the end. You gotta take your relationship seriously. Um, you gotta be present with that person. It takes dedication to maintain a relationship because anybody could be in a relationship, but it takes, you know, dedication and commitment to actually maintain a relationship. You gotta work on your relationship 24/7, even when you're sleeping. You gotta work on your relationship, okay? Consideration. You gotta be careful with your words and your actions. And trust me, when you get into arguments, it's really hard to do that. I know it's hard for me. I'm still learning, I'm still maturing, but you really, really got to be careful with your words and your actions because being considerate means that you're also considering um, and you're thinking about other people's feelings. And you got to be caring and respectful about, you know, the other person's thinking and the other person's feelings and what they're going through, coming home from work and everything, anything that happened at work, you know, it may follow them to home. And if they're stressed out, there's always a reason. I always say that there's a reason behind why a person is thinking what they're thinking, why a person is saying what they're saying, and why a person's acting the way they're acting. There's always a reason, and you just got to be careful and be considerate of the other person's feelings, not just yours, because it's not all about you all the time. And compassion. You gotta be willing to be there for the person that you love, the person that you care about. You gotta show kindness and caring towards that person, and you gotta show sympathy for that person. But the number one thing is that you gotta be willing to show compassion. You know, that's a choice that you have to make, and that's a decision that you gotta make. Um, and just being there, just being in the moment and be present with the person, and letting the person know that no matter what, you're there for that person, that you're willing to give them a time of day, and that you're willing to be there for that person. You're willing to sympathize with that person, and just being kind and just be caring. Now, communication. Communication is very tough because I know for me it's very tough to communicate. Although I think I'm good at communicating, but I know that it's really tough for the simple fact that, um, especially when a person's used to holding everything in and not really, is just a very private person. Because when you're communicating with somebody, you're open to a lot of criticism. Um, you become vulnerable. So when you become vulnerable, you're opening yourself up to hurt. And that's very tough on a lot of people. But look, the number one thing about communication to me is that you gotta listen to understand rather than to listen to respond. Because your response may not, if when somebody's communicating with you and you're thinking about what your response is gonna be, then you're like basically lost in the whole communication. Like you're so consumed with what you're gonna say that you basically don't you're not aware of what the person's point or what the person is trying to say to you. And that's the reason why you gotta listen to understand rather than listen to respond. Listen to understand where that person is coming from, and why that person is feeling what they're feeling, and why that person is saying what they're saying. You gotta just listen to understand rather than listen to respond. You gotta be open to the person, and you gotta be honest before you even say anything. If you know that you're not gonna be honest, there's no point of saying anything, none whatsoever. You're just wasting your time, and most importantly, you're wasting the other person's time. So you gotta be um, open to the person, and you gotta watch what you're saying as well and how you say it. Um, and when somebody is communicating with you about their deepest fears and their issues or whatnot, what's going on in their life and stuff like that, you gotta be considerate and show compassion towards the other person. And yeah, so just listen to understand then rather than listen to respond, and just show that you care, and you know and just be honest from the get-go. Before you even start anything, make the decision to be honest before you open your mouth. um Consistency. You gotta be consistent with your words and with your actions, because anybody could say whatever they want to say, but if your actions doesn't align to what you're saying, there's no point of saying anything at all. you know so you gotta be consistent with your actions and make every effort to work on your relationship through your actions and through your words, and like check in on each other, you know, and be consistent on the way you show your affection towards that person, way you show your kindness and your honesty, and make that person feel like you're trustworthy. Don't ever put yourself in a situation where you gotta get where the person has to question your doings, so you got to be consistent with everything. And if, like, say for example, if you're going to call whoever you're calling, right? And you're telling that person, like, look, hey, I'm here, just want to check up on you to make sure that everything is okay. Like, are you okay? I'm okay, whatnot. And say you go somewhere else, you change your location. Make sure you're consistent with every actions that you're doing. So you change your locations, you're somewhere else now, make sure you call that person and check up on that person, and letting that person know where you are at all times. So yeah, just be consistent with your words and your actions. Your words and your actions have to align together, and make every effort to work on your relationship. Compromise. You gotta meet each other halfway. It has to be 50-50. Compromise is all about gaining, it's not about losing. You have to listen to each other's needs. That's so important. You gotta listen to each other's needs. You can't sit and pretend that you know the needs of the other person. You can't sit and assume what the other person needs. So you got to communicate, and you got to compromise and listen to one another and make decisions that basically will benefit the both of you guys, and the relationship as a whole. Um, so make decisions together, negotiate, and make sure that it's not all about you all the time. And make sure that you want to put the other person's needs first as well, because I'm pretty sure, you know, that person, the other person that you're with, is gonna put your needs first before them. But at the end of the day, compromising is making decisions that will benefit not only for the both of you, but also for the whole relationship. And I want to go back to communication, because communication is a big thing in a relationship. You communicate everything, whether it's a small thing or a big thing. You communicate everything, because it's always good to communicate the small things as well. Everybody knows you communicate the big things, but you got to talk about the small things, because what you may think is small to you, it may be big to the other person. So you got to consider that. And also, I'm pretty sure I've said this before, but make sure that when you're communicating, it's how you say it too, not really what you say, but how you say it, how you approach it. And just be kind with your words, and be aware of what you're saying, and be aware of your um, facial expressions and your physical expressions as well. And just be kind to one another and have fun. Sit down, whatever you need to talk about, just sit down and lay it out on the table. And yeah, that's about it. And I hope you guys tune in for the next one. And I'll talk to you guys later. Anyways, thank you for tuning in to Note to Life podcast with me, Leanne. Talk to you guys later.